Sit. Yes. Yes. This is my buddy Snowy. This is my buddy Bill. In this video, we're going to go over how you can use counter conditioning to stop a dog from barking. It sounds like this. There we go. So I want to have it list a little bit before. There we go. So basically, counter conditioning is kind of a replacement behavior. So if I knock too loud, and I can knock louder and cause them to bark, but take my word for it, they're going to bark if they hear a knock at the door or sounds outside the door. You can use this technique for any sound that your dog reacts to. Now, what I do is the way I reduce the intensity of the stimulus. The stimulus, yes, I know, I saw where you're going. The stimulus is basically the knocking. It could be people shuffling by outside in the hallway, a guitar playing. I had one dog that didn't like Velcro being open. It would bark like crazy if it heard Velcro. So you can use this technique for anything. I slow down the sound, or turn down the volume, slow down the speed, or increase the distance if the dog is reactive. If the dog is reactive, that means we got greedy or we add too much stimulus. So if I knock really loud, that's going to cause the dogs to bark. Snowy, we need you on camera for this, buddy. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to knock very lightly. Yes. I'm saying yes for not barking. Yes. And he's got a lot of cortisol in his blood, so that's why you got that twitchiness. All right, so now I can knock a little bit louder. Yes. Here you go. If you're going to come over, I'm going to reward you because you're being so brave, buddy. I know. So now I can knock a little bit louder. Snowy. Yes. Now I'm going to do this until I get to the point where I can knock like a cop. Let's see if I'm there or not. Snowy. Snowy. Yes. No bark. So the idea, now I'm doing this in a very compressed fashion. This is something usually you would have to practice over the course of a couple of days. So what I would do is, and knocking here or right by the door is probably not the ideal because that's where the knocks come from. So you might have somebody knock on the counter right to our left or on the wall over there or something like that. Also, you can also desensitize the dog. So when you're watching TV, if you're sitting kind of hard, well, depending on how long your arms are. If you're sitting on the armrest and the dogs are just chilling and there's nobody outside, and nobody's going to come in, I might go, and then nobody comes in and you don't go to the door. So we're desensitizing the dog from that particular stimulus. Counter conditioning is different than desensitization. Counter conditioning means I'm about to get a treat. Now they're moved away and they're comfortable being away, that's fine. So do this in short bursts when the dogs are comfortable, and doing this after they've been exercised is advisable. And make sure they have at least 10 minutes to recover after the exercise before you start this. So the knocking at the door is one thing. Walking outside the door is one thing. So now if you had a doorbell, a lot of people will record audio of the doorbell so you can control it on your phone and your timing is precise. So if you play the stimulus, the recording, I know we'll get you some water in a second here, Bill. Or a chime of a guitar or the Velcro opening or whatever, record it, and that way you can control it yourself. And eventually, for the knocking, I just do a light, harder, but these are all single knocks. Then I would go to two, but very quiet again. And then work my way up until I got to the loud one. Bill, there you go, buddy. And so by doing this, gradually the dogs start to see or hear the sound of the knock is a precedent to me getting a treat. Instead of being something I'm going to bark in a protest or warning, I actually look at the bark as the knock as a good thing, because that means something positive is going to happen to me. If we yell at our dog to be quiet when they're barking, they're like, but there's a peeping Tom outside. They're actually going to usually bark louder if we simply tell them to be quiet because we're not acknowledging it. Now for 10% of dogs, and I haven't met any, but you could say, thank you, Snowy. Finally, I've been barking for 10 minutes, man. Nobody's listening. Finally, you acknowledge me. So you might want to just try by saying okay or thanks, Snowy, and see if that does it. Probably not, but sometimes it does work. So the idea is make a list of all of the sounds that your dog responds to. Now, let's say that every day at 11 o'clock in the morning, you have a delivery guy and there's a lot of deliveries being delivered here. Well, then he's going to be on edge at 11 a.m. So then I might actually be outside the door and I might record the audio of people shuffling up and down the wheels of the cart and the whole 9 yards. And then I might practice at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, different times, so that I can help the dog. I'm making it easier. So that way the dog feels a little more comfortable and relaxed. And then we work up to the loudest version of that at 3 o'clock. Then we go back to 11 o'clock, maybe on Saturday when there's no deliveries, and we play it at volume 2. So play a little bit for a second or two, and then say yes and give him the treat. And then gradually work up more and more. Yeah, Bill, I'll give you that. Yes, you're a scaredy cat, but you're getting braver, buddy. You're like the lion in Wizard of Oz. I love it. So the idea is to make a list systematically and just work on all of the individual sounds. Don't work on them all at the same time. Work on 1 or 2 at a time and get to the point where you're at the full bore of it sounds like the police are knocking your door and Snowy's looking around like somebody around here owes me a treat. Now, let me see. And you said, what are the other times that he barks?
Well, then the other one is then walking.
Or someone
walking past outside. Yeah, they're terrible about that.
So now, we're not going to show on camera, but just to draw a picture, there is a big screen door essentially there, and that's facing a main street in Venice, and there's a lot of traffic there. And so because of that, the visual, do they bark at the visual or the sound of hearing puppy, or both?
Mostly the visual. It's mostly when they're out there. Or when the blinds are open, because if it's closed, they don't see it
as much. Yeah.
It's visual for sure.
Yeah.
So if it's visual, you could do the same exercise, but with visual. Now, what I would do is I would arrange to have a friend of yours come over and be talking to your friend through your earpiece. And then you have them over there out of sight. And then you say, okay, I'm going to be talking to you in a regular conversational tone and work out a code. Every time I say a number, then I want you to start walking. You're just going to walk from here to there. So now you're having your dog, Snowy, come here, buddy. Well, it works better if you have a dog here. There we go. Snowy. He's like, I'm tired. I'm off camera. I've worked too many hours today. The union says I'm done. There we go. Go ahead. Go get it, Bill. So basically what I would do, and Bill's still skittish to be over here with me, and I'm not going to move if he comes over here, but I would have the dog sitting here next to me facing the window. Now, the dog does not have to sit. I ask a dog to sit because for me it's an indicator if it's comfortable. If it won't sit, and I know it knows how to sit, and I say sit once, it doesn't sit, it's saying I'm not comfortable. But if I can have the dog sitting here and it's looking in that direction, and I have the person walk by, again, I've exercised, and the dog looks and sees the person, I say yes, and I give the dog a treat. So now the visual of somebody walking is an indicator that I'm about to get a treat. So I'm keeping my arm here because I want Bill to be able to go get that. And if I move, I might spook him. He's on the edge of whether or not he can do this or not. So I'm going to make it a little bit easier for him and give him a little incentive to come a little bit closer. And then see if we go to the second one. See, he's looking at me. He's worried that I'm going to try to snatch him or do something that he doesn't want to do. And that lean forward is a little bit much for him. So I'm going to be very passive and I'm going to look away and can help him feel a little bit more relaxed just by not moving and declining the phone call. All right, so for this, again, pick and choose your battles. Don't do this when there's a lot of people outside. Don't do it when there's going to be knocks from other things, because then that's friendly fire and it gets a little confusing. Also, exercising your dogs ahead of time makes them feel a little bit more relaxed and comfortable, and that sets them up for success. Well, this is my buddy Bill. Behind the camera, we have our buddy Snowy, and this is some tips on how you can use counter conditioning to stop dogs from barking at sounds.